All right, so next one is the future of MMORPGs has never looked better. Do I agree with that? I don't know, because there wasn't that long ago that like MMO after MMO was coming out. Like at Final Fantasy 14 when it came out, Wildstar when it came out. There was like several Aeon, so many that that came out at a time, and none of them lasted. Terra as well, like you had a bunch of them. So it's not like even if more MMOs come out, I mean, it did look like not too good after those because obviously they were all failing, and who wants to make games in a failing genre? But now that they're kind of coming back with, especially with Final Fantasy 14's like Rise, even though Warcraft has obviously fallen a bit, it's still like a huge juggernaut. So that's always been there. But yeah, no, I don't know if it's like the best it's gonna be, but we'll have to see. Like, could be the similar case. All these MMOs come out and they end up dying not too long after.
Half a year ago, I made a video about the best upcoming MMORPGs that haven't been released yet. And in that short amount of time, 4 more AAA studios have come out to say that they too would be making massive AAA MMORPGs. And by my count, that means we're up to about 7 MMORPGs.
It's not a guarantee either, because you have like what is it, Pearl Abyss, who makes Black Desert. They were gonna do a new MMO, but instead they said they're gonna just do it like a normal RPG style, which I think is great. If they make it like The Witcher, like at that quality level, I'm really looking forward to that.
From AAA studios currently in development. People have been trying to convince MMO players that the genre is dying for nearly a decade now, but to be honest, its future.
You can't argue though that there are a lot of MMOs that have died not in the last few years. I don't think anyone can argue that point. So I think maybe that's where the sentiment is coming from. I mean, even New World almost died. I mean, then again, it was its own fault, but like I could see why people would think that.
Future has never looked brighter than it does right now. 2023 alone looks nuts. We've got Throne and Liberty coming out in 2023. ZOS is likely going to announce their unannounced title in 20.
Also, some of these MMOs are coming out are seeming like PvP focused. Like I think Throne and Liberty is a bit on the PvP focus side. So is Ashes of Creation. So it's like those two alone, and there could be more. We'll see. But I think those games, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to implement a PvP system that's going to be universally liked, only because it's hard to get that right. I think the main thing they really have to look out for if they're going to keep on track with the PvP being like a major component to their game is have it where the feeling of hopelessness from a player engaging in it is as low as possible in terms of their when they run into it. If it's almost every time they interact with that system in the PvP like they just feel like it's hopeless because they're not a part of the Zerg or they're being outnumbered or whatever it may be, maybe under geared, under leveled. Like the more moments of hopelessness where the player feels like they can't do anything to change their what's happening, you're gonna get people who quit. At least me personally, I hate it when that happens. I'll stop PvPing in a game if I feel like I can't do anything to contribute. I can't change any outcome. Like I'm just basically, I'm no one. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I feel like if in a dungeon or a raid, that's how it felt when it doesn't. Like your damage means something. And they may still take down the boss when you die, but you could have made it easier. You know what I mean?
2023 for reasons I'll get into later. Ashes of Creation is likely dropping Alpha 2 in 2020.
Or if you've ever played like raid or dungeon and then like say for example you're the DPS or really anything other any spec and your team dies on you, right? If you could still get that kill off of the boss, that's huge. Like that is a feeling you're gonna remember for a while. Like I did that with a raid boss once and I still remember that. It's like one of my favorite moments. It was on my shaman and it was at like less than a percent probably. It was in Zing or ZG, like way back in the day. But I managed to kite the like Panther boss a bit. Um, yeah, I don't know, like it was super close. Like, but I killed him. We got loot. I didn't get anything, unfortunately, but I still remember that. Like, that's crazy that that's still a memory like that I have.
2023. Riot is likely to have official developer announcements beginning in 2023. Those were supposed to start in 2022, but they didn't.
I have a feeling Riot's MMO is going to take probably the longest of any MMO he's talking about, only because they had the funds to constantly add things, so they don't need to release it early to try to make up any money that's being poured into it. They have League of Legends for that. They have Valorant for that. So it's like they could, because a lot of problems with MMORPGs that are just releasing, they're not going to have the same level of content as Warcraft, as Final Fantasy. So I mean, that was one of the reasons why New World failed so horribly at first, was that after 30, it was just like a grind fest almost to try to get to the next place to do a dungeon. And even doing dungeons, they had like a stupid system for that. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. The keys or whatever they're called. Um, but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Riot because I have a feeling that thing's gonna come out and it's gonna be like an MMO that's been already out for like a year or two.
Make it. So my best bet is that that'll start in 23. And according to the developers, Soulframe is going to be in a playable state in 2023. 2020
Soulframe looks interesting. I really like its melee focused. I don't mind shooters, like I play them. I played Warframe like crazy, but I played Warframe mostly for the abilities that the characters had than the guns. So looking really forward to that.
23 is looking like it's going to be an absolutely incredible year for the genre. So if you want to be kept
In terms of news, but how many are coming out in 2023?
up to date on all the latest MMO news, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Now let's dive in and talk about everything we know about the upcoming AAA MMOs currently in development. Horizon Online by NCSoft and Sony. In a surprising
I don't think this is going to come out anytime soon. I could be wrong, but I just have a feeling that thing's not going to come out till like 2025.
twist that no one saw coming in our timeline, Sony and NCSoft have seemingly teamed up to make an MMORPG for the
I think
Horizon
the idea
franchise.
is amazing if they can pull it off. Like, I really like Horizon's world, and the overarching story is really cool.
This is a fascinating concept to think about. Sony is responsible for titles like God of War and Horizon, games with amazing storytelling, while NCSoft has put out some incredibly successful MMOs like Lineage 2 and even Guild Wars 2 by way of ArenaNet. These two teams could be the perfect marriage. NCSoft stated that they have an internal development team working on the title. Meanwhile, we've seen job postings from ArenaNet about working on an Unreal Engine 5 powered online fantasy RPG. Is ArenaNet working on Horizon Online? Are they working on Guild Wars 3 or neither? I don't know yet, but let's stick to what we do know. Negotiations have concluded and development has begun. So it sounds like this NCSoft Sony partnership is actually happening. You have to imagine that since it's an important franchise for Sony, Sony would keep the monetization of the MMO, let's say, purer than NCSoft titles have come to be known for in recent years, which means we could see.
I honestly don't think like an MMO is what they should go for. I don't know. Like, it just feels like if they just made it just like Horizon but multiplayer, like maybe a bigger world, um, I think that would just be better. Like, think Skyrim with a multiplayer mod.
A title that has NCSoft quality, Sony lore, and Sony monetization. That's a combination of things I'm excited to see in action. The Horizon franchise has been heralded as one of the best out there, and its world really does lend itself to an MMO type of setting. Seeing that this
Lend itself to an MMO type of setting. Not really. Not more than any other one. I don't know what he means by that.
MMO has only just been announced and that the ink on the Sony NC partnership looks like it's still wet. I'm going to assume it's probably a solid 5 to 6 years from release. I've got to be honest, I didn't see this MMO or this partnership coming, but in a lot of ways it makes perfect sense and I'm excited to follow it.
Next up, we've got Arcade 2 by Cacao Games. I was writing and recording this video when out of nowhere Cacao Games dropped.
This is going to be interesting. I still want to play, like, I have it saved in my bookmarks for the Arcade private server. So I do want to give it a shot. I've been playing like Warcraft and stuff, so I've been delaying it because I've heard nothing but good things about it. But at the same time, it seems like it's one of those games where it's almost like Rust, where you need to have a ton of players for the game to operate the way it was kind of intended. And the problem with those games is if you're playing at a time without those players, or like say you just have a bad experience because it's like PvP focused, if I'm not mistaken, or you can get killed. It's open world PvP. Like the more players who quit the game because of things not involving like the good stuff means that those good things are now slightly worse, and that can be a vicious cycle
This absolutely stunning trailer for ArcAge
to the point that the good things now become bad.
2, already surpassing my expectations for this game. The timing couldn't have been more
Looks
perfect,
amazing,
so
though.
I'm adding this section at the last second. And thanks to an interview from the developer, we have some great information to share. The game will be released on console and PC, and they're shooting for a 2024 release.
All MMOs should release on console. I truly believe that. And I know with Warcraft, they say they can't really do it. I play Warcraft with a controller. I use my mouse every now and then, but most of the time I'm playing with a controller, just because to me it's just more comfortable. I mean, I can play with a keyboard and mouse. I just prefer not to.
State. This is going to be another MMO built on Unreal Engine 5, and it's crazy to see how good these MMOs are looking on Unreal 5. We first learned about ArcAge 2 about 2 years ago, but haven't heard a lot since, until this week when they dropped this gorgeous teaser trailer. According to the developers, this game is going to feature a seamless open world, and if you're following the progress of Ashes of Creation, you'll see some familiar features in ArcAge 2, as Ashes has drawn significant inspiration from ArcAge 1. The developers plan for ArcAge 2 to have action-packed combat, as seen in the footage playing.
I think Lucky Ghost has a video on that, where he worries about the PvP system affecting it. And I would say most players would agree, especially players who have been burnt by such systems, myself included. So it's like, I may react to that video. I don't know if I have yet, but I definitely agree with a lot of his points
Right now, and they're putting a lot of time and money into telling an immersive and compelling story. They also said that it's very important to them that the game
really
has
cool.
AAA visuals and takes advantage of Unreal Engine 5's capabilities, and based on the early footage, it looks like they're succeeding on this front. The game aims to have a more non-linear progression and a focus on a more personal story and journey than ArcAge 1 did. The story of the game will portray Aurora when it was first discovered and people were first starting to settle there. The story will involve discovering and solving the mysteries of an ancient civilization that had been forgotten for thousands of years, leaving it to blend in with the natural environment. And this kind of reminds me of the Dwemer from Elder Scrolls' franchise.
Oh, I was going to say it reminds me of New World with their new expansion. But yeah, I mean, the Dwemer, they were super advanced, though. I wonder if that's the same thing.
Except this time, you're actually going to get to solve the mystery around this lost and forgotten race. The developers went on to
With the Dwemer, I think you kind of do. Like, they basically stumbled on something. It's like a dwarven story where they basically pushed things too far, found something they weren't supposed to, and that wiped them out. I could be wrong, though.
say that ArcAge 1 had trade runs that
That
were
may be a
enjoyable,
favorite
but
route.
had many flaws. So in ArcAge 2, they're going to bring the system back, but greatly enhance it. Players will be allowed to participate in these both alone or in teams, and this system might remind you of Ashes of Creation's caravans. They also pointed out that housing was a popular feature from the original title, so this time they're going to be improving that and adding more customization, as well as allowing players to live in towns with their friends and even create their own towns with their guild members. We are now wrapping up 2022 and stepping into 2023, and this game is slated for a 2024 release date. That's great news. Between this and the other MMOs on this list, we're going to have plenty of MMOs to try out in the next few years.
Clearly, good MMOs are hard to find. Fortunately, good VPNs aren't, which brings us to the sponsor of today's video.
Nord.
Did you know NordVPN is the fastest VPN? Yep, this has been tested and verified. With over 5,200 servers in 59 countries, there is a server near you with blazing fast speeds no matter where you are, giving you the best connection to your games and TV shows. Speaking of games and TV shows, a lot of games are sold cheaper in other countries, or sometimes not available in your country at all. You can use NordVPN to browse games and prices in 59 different countries to find the best deals for you. You can also find streaming platforms at lower prices by placing yourself virtually in those countries. Can't watch a show because it's airing in a different region than what you're currently located? Use your VPN to be there virtually so that you can watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. If all of that isn't enough, NordVPN also has threat protection with advanced anti-malware capabilities. Nord has become more than just a VPN. It's a powerful cybersecurity tool that can protect you from malware, spies, and stalkers. If you aren't already protecting yourself with NordVPN, or if you're curious about the access to games and TV shows around the world, try NordVPN now. The best part is it's absolutely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guaranteed. If you're not satisfied in any way, cancel and get your money back. Use my link to get exclusive NordVPN pricing at nordvpn.com/luckyghost. For your convenience, I'll also toss the link in the description down below. Thanks for listening. Let's talk about the next upcoming MMO. MMO. Next up, we have Soulframe by Digital Extremes. Digital Extremes, the creators of the incredibly popular
Why is it
Warframe
shiny?
franchise, have announced that
Looks
they would
wet.
be also making an
slimy.
MMORPG. Recent additions to Warframe saw them adding more and more MMO-like features, including sprawling open-world zones that felt like they were trying to pivot Warframe itself into being an MMORPG. Well, it looks like rather than trying to turn Warframe
Yeah, because Warframe is more just a multiplayer hub-based game. I think I've talked about it before. So that's going to be cool if they lean towards the MMORPG route. You know what it kind of reminds me? The enemies. They kind of remind me of that one Xbox game. I think Lost Odyssey was what it's called. That game was really good too. So hopefully they got inspiration from that.
into a classic MMORPG, they're just going to create an actual MMORPG called Soulframe. They just began actual work on the MMO in the spring, but it's going to utilize the same engine as Warframe, which should greatly speed up its development. They are calling the two sister titles and saying that improvements to one game can be implemented into the other. In fact, they even went as far as to say they hope to have people in and playing the game within a year. Now, given that a good MMORPG tends to take the better part of a decade to develop, this sounds incredibly ambitious. It does make me wonder how deep of an MMORPG it could be if they intend to have people playing it inside of a year. I assume they're talking super early testing of super basic systems, but let's just say that I'm definitely curious to see how much of Warframe is going to be repurposed and repackaged in this game to make this timeline possible. If you're a fan of Warframe, don't
I mean, most of the games he's talked about so far aren't anywhere close to release to 2023, so I don't know why he said 2023 is like going to be a really good year.
worry, their plan is still very much to continue supporting Warframe after Soulframe releases. The plan is for it to be a fantasy, magic-heavy MMORPG, much more of your typical melee and magic type of universe than the Warframe sci-fi gun-heavy universe. If you've played Warframe, you know exactly how fast-paced it can be. As a new player, you quickly realize that if you want to keep up with your teammates, you better get good at leaping through the air, and fast. Soulframe aims to slow that down to a more impactful and slow combat style, much more suitable for MMOs and the group content that they offer. It'll be interesting to see how they go about monetizing this MMORPG. Warframe tends to focus on monetizing pay to advance faster. A lot of things in that game take a very long time to grind
This
or
part gives me
research.
like a Dark
And when it
Souls
comes
vibe.
to MMORPGs, pay to advance faster is often a nice way of calling something pay to win. So I kind of hope that they approach the monetization from a different angle for the MMO's sake. As of right now, they've given no indication of what the monetization model will be, other than that it will be free to play. If all of that sounds interesting, you can swing by the website now to reserve your in-game display name. All you have to do is solve the puzzle on the landing page. And by the way, if you just want the answer to that puzzle, here it is. Ultimately, I'm excited to try this one out. I love Warframe's art style and have sunk quite a bit of time into it, but I've always stepped away as the grind that is put there to incentivize you to pay to advance faster inevitably just becomes too much, and I put the game down again. Still, it's a quality game, and the idea of this developer working on an MMO is something I'm definitely excited about. Next up, we've got a Dune MMO from Funcom. Back in 2019, Funcom announced that they were working on a Dune MMO, but this year we finally got an actual announcement with more details and a cinematic trailer. We don't have a lot to go on this one other than what we know from the
Like, if there's no gameplay trailer, then you know that MMO is like years from being anywhere near release.
cinematic trailer they released and their website. Dune Awakening combines the grittiness and creativity of survival games with the social interactivity of large-scale persistent multiplayer games to create a unique and ambitious open-world survival MMO. Rise from the survival to dominance in a vast and seamless Arrakis shared by thousands.
I don't know why they would make this an MMO. I think one of the problems with making a Dune MMO is that it's just desert. I don't know, I feel like that would get boring after a while. Because it's not like you can go anywhere in Dune. Like, it's just the one world, and it's like a world of deserts.
Of players. Now, this is the developer that made Conan Exiles, which is described as an online
Don't get me
multiplayer
wrong,
survival
like,
game with
it's definitely cool, especially that they have like sandworms and stuff like that, which like all desert like areas for some reason have. But I don't know. I just don't see it lasting long term.
mounted combat set in the lands of Conan.
They would have to be cases like I'm trying to think of what they could do. I think one is obviously like a sunken temple of sorts, like a huge building under the sands that you just go in and explore, like it's massive. So maybe it could be its own little world. Another one would be going into like a cavern that you drop down and you end up like in prehistoric times. That would also be cool. Like I guess there is a few things they could do there, but it's pretty limited.
And the barbarians survive in a vast open world sandbox, build a home and kingdom to dominate your enemies. So there seems to be a lot of overlap in the two games, both in their description and
Another thing, like with that sandworm, how the heck are you supposed to fight something like that as like a raid boss?
In their design. It sounds like Dune is going to be a more ambitious version of Conan Exiles that takes place in the Dune universe instead of the Conan universe. Instead of dozens of players on a server, Dune will have thousands. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in a game where you are meant to gather materials and build a base to defend yourself from other players and the wilderness. They go on to say that you will survive the most dangerous planet in the universe, build shelters against sandstorms, maintain your still suit, and master the old ways to walk even deeper into the desert. Avoid or be devoured by the colossal sandworms that dwell beneath the sands. Right now, I'm totally picturing this being like playing Rust, but in the desert with a giant sandworm roaming around trying to kill me. The best materials and ingredients, I'm assuming, will be deeper into the desert, farther from the safety of my fort. So perhaps I'll spend a lot of time upgrading my still suit to venture farther into the dangerous deserts.
Because that's gameplay. Man, this is rough.
Without dying, thus returning.
I didn't know like Dune had like actual luscious like vegetation. Okay, it's like going to be like Conan then.
With better rewards. Of course, one of the primary resources you'll be looking for is spice. This is Dune after all, so much of your time will be spent seeking it out. But remember, as mentioned earlier, the sandworms won't be your only threat. Much like Rust or Conan Exiles, other players will be seeking out these valuable resources and likely will try to kill you to take yours. If you do manage to succeed in your hunt for spice, you'll be able to consume the spice to conquer your senses and acquire powerful abilities. Beyond that, you'll also be able to hone your crafting from financial gain, as well as construct a fortress in the style of your choosing. I think the most interesting thing about describing your base as a fortress here is that it makes it sound like your structure is going to be able to be quite substantial in both size and scope. While Conan's Exile isn't the most popular game in the world, it has generated mostly positive ratings on Steam and has kept the niche community quite happy. It's going to be interesting to see how much more appeal a similar but grander game can generate with the Dune name attached to it. I'm definitely excited to try this one out.
I mean, what we just saw was really cool, but at the same time, that game, I don't know, it's probably like super low player base.
And I'll continue to follow it. Next up, we have Project LLL from NCSoft. By the looks of this list, it sounds like NCSoft has been incredibly busy and has a lot planned for the near future. LLL is a first-person shooter MMORPG. It sounds like it's going to be a direct competitor to games like Destiny. The coolest part about this announcement was that it came with 9 minutes of actual gameplay footage. Not CGI, not renderings, not...
That's a really good sign.
Not graphic art. 9 minutes of someone actually playing the game. So this game is a substantially long way into development. Normally, we don't get to see actual gameplay for MMOs until years after we've heard the game's name whispered over the internet. So yeah, I love this. And the game looks solid. The gunplay looks great. I can definitely see this game being a hit with past or present Destiny players. It was also announced that the game has a vast open world in which more than 30 square kilometers of land are seamless.
Or even Warframe players, like anyone who's into that shooter RPG genre.
Connected to a single environment. The core elements that make up the open world are uninterrupted loading and movement. To convey a seamless environment, they've implemented content streaming and utilized the most cutting-edge rendering technology. So it sounds like this is going to try and have more of an open world feel as opposed to its primary competitor Destiny, which is a lot more of a lobby-based MMO feel to it. To put that into perspective, 30 square kilometers is about the same size as GTA 5. Based on the gameplay that we saw, there appears to be a lot of sci-fi and horror elements.
Oh, it's this video. Yeah, I've seen this video. Looks really cool.
And grotesque enemies, a mega boss of some sort that appears to be made of 1,000 arms. I didn't see any quote-unquote magic like you do in a traditional MMO. More so, we saw a character utilize...
Almost reminds me of the Destiny boss. The black... I can't remember anymore. It's the one from the Vex. Like one of the first bosses that you fight with the Vex.
Rockets fired over his shoulder from a backpack gadget, a jetpack for jumping to higher places, and even some kind of shield to protect him from incoming enemy fire. By far, the most common weapon used was his rifle, which was used to take down 90% of the enemies in the video. So it looks like this is definitely a shooter first and foremost. Given that it is an MMO, I do wonder if or how many classes it might have. Will it have abilities? Is it entirely gear-based? Will we have passives? There's so much more that we still need to learn. All in all, it looks like a pretty cool world. It's got a very dark and gritty feel to it. The gunplay looks like it feels solid, and it looks like it's very much in a playable state, which means that this one is likely to release sooner than most of the MMOs on this list. Next up, we have Throne and Liberty, yet another NCSoft MMO. Throne and Liberty is a AAA MMORPG set to be released on console and PC in 2023. NCSoft recently partnered with Amazon Game Studios to have them publish the game here in the West. Throne and Liberty is the spiritual successor to Lineage 2. In fact, Throne and Liberty was originally going to be the next Lineage established game, but in writing the story for the game, NCSoft realized it would be best served as an entirely new IP. As someone who put quite a few hours into Lineage 2 and then into Lineage 2 Classic, I'm really curious to see how much of Lineage 2 will still be in the game. Recently, NCSoft announced that the aim of the game is to allow freedom, minimum rules, and creative play. They talked about the pros and the cons of instance and non-instance dungeons, but I couldn't tell which way they planned to land on the topic as it was translated from Korean to English, which has been one of the most unfortunate.
They may not have mounts that let you traverse the terrain pretty easily if they're giving you like a grappling hook.
Parts of all of this. Little to no information has been provided to Western audiences so far. We've very much felt like a little bit of an afterthought in NCSoft games in the past, and it's beginning to feel that way all over again with Throne and Liberty. Hopefully their collaboration with AGS starts to solve this problem in the near future. From what we could translate, it looks like Throne and Liberty will have a day and night cycle where it's 4 hours of day and 1 hour of night, with that 1 hour of night potentially being open to PvP. Again, the details here are incredibly fuzzy thanks to translation. The game will feature gliding, and your gliding distance will be impacted by the wind, either in your favor or against it depending on your direction relative to the winds. I absolutely love the amount of mobility it looks like they have integrated.
I don't think I'm gonna like that much. Like the wind is gonna affect it. I'd rather your own skill affect it, like with dragon riding.
Graded into Throne and Liberty between the grapple hook, the gliding, and the transformations. Getting around the world should be a lot of fun. The game plans to play differently between day and night.
Unless there's like workarounds for that wind, like you're kind of like can't really do anything about the wind.
As well as when it's rainy or sunny, skills and abilities will perform differently. Throne and Liberty will also feature siege battles. The siege battles look like they will be a significant part of the game, much like they were in Lineage 2. Just look at the footage on the screen right now. It looks like it's going to be pretty epic. Cool, apparently, even the siege battles are going to be affected by the weather. For instance, certain passages into the castle won't be available if it's rained, as they'll be flooded. In Lineage 2, when guilds won siege battles, they'd end up controlling that castle or town for a week or two.
I don't know. I think people's computers are going to melt if you're having that many characters.
Usually profiting heavily until it was allowed to be sieged again. At this point, they would have to defend it. It was a massive part of the game, and the spread out nature of the siege battles allowed for a nice balance of PvE and PvP content. It's going to be interesting to see how much of the PvP in Throne and Liberty is inspired by the Lineage 2 siege system. And if you recall, these are the same systems that have heavily inspired Ashes of Creation. In Throne and Liberty, the player is going to be highly mobile with the ability to grapple onto objects and surfaces of varying heights. So this should allow for some excellent verticality and zone design and should pair brilliantly with its ability to use gliders. NCSoft has made and published some amazing MMOs in its time, and it absolutely has the knowledge and the potential to do so again. When I talked about this game 6 months ago, it was slated to be released at the end of 2022, and I speculated that since we still didn't know anything about it 6 months ago, it was going to get pushed back to 2023. And sure enough, they announced their partnership with AGS and pushed the release date back to 2023. And here we are at the end of 2022, approaching the beginning of 2023, and we still don't know anything about this game. So here's hoping they drop some big information about this game to the West so that we can start getting excited about it. Next up on the list is Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is a...
This is definitely like one of the games I'm really looking forward to, mainly because it's like the maker, like the top level people are people who love MMOs. Even if it's like not the same MMO you may be playing, they know it from a player's perspective, which is huge.
A massive MMO.
Like Warcraft kind of had that for a while, but then I don't know if it's corporate like mentality coming in or like making them assume you have to keep a player engaged at all times with like crazy grindy stuff. But yeah, I'm really hoping they learn from WoW's like recent mistakes and don't do any of that.
MMO featuring a beautiful, seamless open world and is set to release on PC with no current plans for console. As of right now, no official release date has been announced, but we still know a heck of a lot more about this game than we do Throne and Liberty, which is set to be released next year. This is thanks to the fact that the developers have put a lot of effort into keeping the community updated on the progress of its development. Yep. This has allowed creators...
Narc is a great YouTuber to watch if you want to keep updated on Ashes of Creation,
and the community to give their feedback every step of the way, which I've thoroughly enjoyed participating in, funny. With Asmongold and even Steven Sharif himself weighing in on my video. The too long didn't watch was basically that since the game is an open world, always on PvP MMO, it's important to make sure that the losing side is able to enjoy the game. Otherwise, it won't be long before the winning side doesn't have anyone to play against. Protect the players from excessive griefing or risk losing them forever. This has been a common problem with this brand of MMO, but I think if any...
Yeah, because like even New World, like I tried the PvP New World, and then I know they try to make it as fair as they can, but man, I don't know if this guy was hacking, but he was literally killing me with the gun, like from a crazy distance, just getting nothing but headshots. And I was like rolling, move, like dodging, still nothing but headshots. Like he killed me in like 4 seconds. And there's nothing you can do because he's that far out. So it's like, obviously they can't nerf the gun to where it can't do any damage, but at the same time, it's like, how do you fix that? Because I couldn't do anything. He was spawn camping. So it's just like, I don't know, just felt really, really crappy.
Always on PvP MMO stands a chance to succeed where the rest have failed.
Even when like 3 people spawned at the same time and we all rushed him, he killed all 3 of us. It was freaking crazy. I mean, it's kind of cool that a good enough player can do that, but at the same time, it feels like you literally can't do anything to that player.
It's Ashes of Creation. Unlike many of the games on this list, Ashes of Creation has already had a very public and very successful Alpha 1 back in July of 2021, where players were allowed to play and stream and make content about the state of the game so far. It was both a confirmation of the fact that what has been made.
Yeah, the video with the archer or hunter, whatever they're calling it, like that was a really impressive showcase.
So far was beautiful, but also that the game was a long way from
really
being finished.
To, like,
Since then, we have seen some impressive progress, including the announcement that they've switched from UE4 to UE5. The visual fidelity noticeably improved with this change, as recent live streams of the game have been nothing short of stunning. Make no mistake, this is going to be an absolutely gorgeous universe. I don't know what they're feeding the artists at Intrepid, but I hope they keep it up. This year, they also showcased a sophisticated character creation screen that allowed them to create highly customizable characters that looked amazing. They showed demonstrations of the melee combat as well as the archer combat, and the archer combat especially looked fantastic. There are definitely some abilities in that kit that look like they're going to be a lot of fun. The next major milestone for the game is going to be Alpha 2, which is described as a persistent alpha. While details on this are light, it sounds like the game will be more or less permanently up, and they intend to have the core of the game assembled for that phase. Intrepid hasn't given any indication of when Alpha 2 will be, but I will be 100% jumping in when it goes live. A lot of people were hoping that Alpha 2 would come in 2022, but it looks like that opportunity has come and gone, so now it looks like 2023 is the best bet. Ashes of Creation defines loot boxes.
I think if it is 2023, it's going to be late 2023. I have a feeling that it's not really close to being fully complete, or at least release ready.
Boxes, XP potions, and
like I have no doubt they'll do some testing, maybe even 1 or 2 public testings. But it's probably late 2023 if I had to guess.
Inventory problems as pay to win. And in my opinion, that is a massive breath of fresh air. It looks like the monetization of Ashes of Creation will be 100% above board. This is just one more reason I think it stands a fantastic chance of succeeding where its predecessors have failed. And is
honestly, the pay to win model doesn't really make too much of a difference whether the game fails or wins. Only because it's proven that games with it can succeed. Lost Ark, Genshin Impact. Even though Genshin Impact isn't an MMO, the game is like insanely big and it's insanely pay to win.
Is one of the major reasons I'm rooting for it. The best skins will be earned in game, and if I understand it correctly, it looks like the weapon cosmetics won't even be available in the cash shop. They will be earned by playing the game. The game will be sub to play with no box purchase necessary. Combine all of that with its beautiful world, traditional MMO design, and ambitious scope, and you can instantly see why Ashes of Creation is currently one of the most anticipated MMOs today. It will feature the holy trinity of tank, healer, and DPS.
I've always thought the holy trinity needs a rework, honest, because when you have to rely on getting a tank and a healer for most things, like, I don't know. Most people want a DPS. Like, I think Final Fantasy probably does it one of the best ways, but even then, I don't really see a big point in it. I think any character should just be able to tank with their own kit. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's at least how I feel, but
combat can be a make or break feature for this genre, and after seeing the Archer playtest, I am incredibly excited. I can't wait to see what they have planned for the rest of the classes. Ashes of Creation is not...
It's to the point that I'm like, okay, the Warrior Showcase didn't show too many abilities, but the Archer one does. So I'm hoping down the road they're going to have a Warrior Showcase one. Because Warriors, I mean, they got like a really cool whirlwind ability. Like that's really all a lot of warriors are going to want. So.
Content to build a better version of what came before it. It also has some incredibly innovative features, including things like plans to have a dynamic world that changes based on player behavior. Specific nodes can be upgraded to unlock new content and new resources based on player activity in an area, which means that every server could look completely different from every other server. Which nodes have metropolises and which nodes have wilderness, that'll be decided by the players. If the community spends enough time in an area, they might uncover a dungeon or a raid that was previously not available. I hope that they somehow hide some of the mystery from the player base so that we don't all know which nodes need to be leveled up.
Because let's be fair, players are gonna do everything they can to abuse that system. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna exploit the crap out of it. So if there's any bugs or anything like that, players are gonna really, really get into it. I don't know how it's gonna play out because I have a feeling it's like they're gonna need to do some insane testing to make sure that's no crazy issues happen because of what players are gonna try to do.
On day one for the best
almost
loot.
never
As of
works
right
out.
now, Ashes is already a long way into its development, but I'd guess it's still at least 3 years from being complete. It's worth noting that it really does feel like in
3 years. That's quite a while. I would say 2 at most, if I had to guess. I think next year, late next year, um, they would have a pretty solid release date window.
Intrepid has ramped up their progress this year with one incredible live stream after another with details of their recent progress. This is definitely one of the more unique and interesting MMOs to follow on this list right now, especially if you're a fan of good PvP in an MMO. Next up, we have Riot's MMO that takes place in the same world as League of Legends. Riot has announced that they are working on an MMO. This excites me because Riot reminds me a lot of Blizzard from the early 2000s. Everything they make seems to turn to gold. They made it
like literally if there's going to be a WoW killer among the games coming out, I don't think Ash is going to do it. It could, but I just don't see it. I think the Riot MMO is going to do it. If any of them are going to even come close, it will be Riot's MMO.
an entire fictional world in League of Legends, and now they're turning that into a TV show and an MMO. You can draw a lot of parallels to the way that Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 were turned into a MOBA and a movie and an MMO. It's exciting to think that any of the MMOs on this list could be the next one to capture the genre the way that WoW did in its prime, but Riot's track record so far suggests that it's definitely one of the most likely candidates to succeed. Simply put,
you also got to remember, Riot by itself is a brand name that millions of players already know about. So it doesn't matter what they release, they're almost guaranteed to get a few million players to at least try it. And with MMOs, the more players, the better, basically. So, I mean, that was with Warcraft. Like, you had StarCraft, like, their games were just known in the gaming, like, gamers. Like, if you didn't know freaking Blizzard games, you weren't really a gamer. Obviously, I mean, that's, like, not completely true, but in a sense, it actually is. Like Diablo, Warcraft, StarCraft, like those were like the three juggernauts. So it's like if you didn't know about any of them, like did you actually play games, especially PC games? Or like it's just kind of crazy to think about. It's a similar to Riot's situation now. It's like if you don't know about League of Legends, you don't know about Valorant. Like it's do you actually play on the PC like at all? So yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. They're going to have like a ton of people want to play. I mean, even Amazon, dude, like Amazon didn't really make any games, but New World like had a ton of players playing it, mostly because who doesn't know about Amazon? The name alone is going to bring in players.
Riot has the talent and the money to make any game they want and has the track record of doing so with excellence. Not only that, they have a built-in player base ready to try the game the second it drops, just like Blizzard did when it launched WoW. Almost everything we know about the game so far has been taken from the Twitter account of Greg Street, aka Ghost Crawler. As of 2021, he said that most senior roles were filled, and he said that he would go as far as to say lead rewards designer is one of the most important roles in this or any MMO. I can't explain how hard I agree with this comment. It's mind-blowing to me.
Lead rewards designer. To a degree, it's important. It's important to not mess it up, but it's not important to be the best, if that makes sense. Like, as long as it's not terrible or bad, then it's usually okay. As long as it's okay and up, then that's fine. Obviously, the better that turns out, you know, the more long term, I think you'll retain your players, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, Final Fantasy is a great example of that, where their reward system is pretty good. Like, it's not amazing, but it's like pretty dang good. Probably one of the better ones out there. But it still can't like retain a player base like at all times. Like they expect you to go and play other games. So, I mean, that's as long as when you're playing it, does it feel good to get the gear while you're playing.
Number of MMOs that don't understand that rewards are what drive the MMO players to continue playing after they hit max level. Failure to create exciting rewards, or worse yet, putting all of the exciting rewards in the cash shop will always put a lower ceiling on the
But that's the RPG nature of MMORPGs, is the rewards. Like League of Legends doesn't really have that. Like your reward is the victory, basically. Your one-on-one fight you just won, or the team fight that you played a crucial role in getting the victory. But it's not like you get that much out of like the victory in terms of rewards. It's not like you get like a whole new character every time you win. Um, like it's slow increments to getting stuff, but I don't think that's why most League of Legends players play the game. At least not when I played it.
Success an MMO can achieve. In recent interviews that he has also clarified were not directly about Riot's MMO specifically, just about MMO development in general, it sounded like he felt like he could make the free-to-play model work. I do wonder how he would align these two statements if the Riot MMO does go that route. How does a free-to-play MMO also have compelling rewards? Typically, the rewards are the first thing that the cash shop cannibalizes in a free-to-play MMO. First, it's a cool weapon skin, then it's the best weapon skin. First, it's a cool mount, then it's the best mount. It's been a long time since I saw a new MMO avoid this pitfall, and I'm really hoping to see Riot avoid the mistake. If they do go free to play, as he seemed to insinuate in his discussion, it'll be fascinating to see what innovative approach they take here. Greg is
To me, as long as they don't do too many time saving or like time saving things, like say you have fatigue, energy. I hate games that have those things. I can't play them because it's just a money pit that you'll never dig yourself out of. That's what killed it for me with Lost Ark, was just running into that fatigue system. Just doesn't feel good. It's what killed it with Genshin for me also.
explained that they're aiming for mass appeal. He said, I think it's safe to say we're not aiming for a niche product. Some games do great with 500,000 very loyal players who love the game. That's awesome, but that's not what we're going for. This is Riot saying, we're swinging for the fences. We consider moderate success a complete failure. We want to be the next WoW. And given that Greg Street worked on WoW during its glory years, I think that he's a prime candidate to succeed on that front. Greg did confirm that the Riot MMO will have raids and dungeons, and a significant PvE presence does not mean
are keeping up with the current trends, especially trends that are not working, like Shadowlands, BFA, and other MMOs like WildStar, another one where is WildStar, like if I remember right, the main reason why it did not succeed was it was catering to the hardcore audience, which is a niche audience. So it's like, if unless you're catering to the, not catering, but like focusing on the casual player base, that's a niche game. It's going to become a niche game. That's just how it is. Most MMO players are casual players, so
mean a lack of PvP, as Ghostcrawler confirmed PvP will be in the game and that they see a future that includes epic PvP battles and even esports.
Let's be fair, like the PvP is going to be super easy for the Riot MMO because they just got to take inspiration from League of Legends, you know, one of the best esports game out there. So it's like, I don't see them messing up PvP because they know what they're doing.
The MMO genre,
because even in an MMO space, like there's ways to go about it. Final Fantasy does a pretty good job. If Final Fantasy had way more maps and modes with the same kind of PvP style, I'd probably be still playing the PvP on it. I just got bored of doing the same thing over and over.
Has struggled to create and maintain a competitive PvP scene for some time now, so it'll be exciting to see how Riot approaches this piece of the puzzle. One of the most contentious things that Greg has said so far is when he was asked about tab targeting, he said he thinks combat in the genre is dated, and if we combine that information with a job posting seeking an action combat designer, it looks like the game's combat is aiming to evolve past the tab target days of WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. The game appears to be
which is fine. Terra, that's what really
being built on Unreal Engine.
Separated Terra from the other MMOs was its action combat, which, you know, was great, still good. A lot of people still play the private servers just for that feeling. And I think the main reason why Terra failed was that they weren't investing back into the game as much as they should have. It felt like the content was very sparse. I didn't really feel too engaging in terms of that reward system that they were talking about. So,
Engine and is hiring developers with Unreal Engine experience. Based on what we've seen from Ashes of Creation in UE5, I can't wait to see how gorgeous Riot's MMO looks in that same engine. I have a feeling Riot will go a much different direction with its art style, so I'm guessing it's going to be a lot more.
Because if they're going to learn anything, they're going to know that, especially if they're devoting this level of like finances into it, like I think the Riot MMO is going to have like an insane budget compared to the other ones. Not that the other ones are like low, but let's be fair, Riot can throw some pretty weighty dick around when it comes to money. So it's like, they're going to go crazy with that. And if they are, if I was on that end where I'm making those decisions to put in that level of money, let's be fair. And like artistic um, graphics is going to last longer than the hyper realism ones because it's always going to get more real like as time progresses. So it's like, oh, like Warcraft. Look at Warcraft's graphics don't look that bad, even though they kind of is. It doesn't look that bad to play it because it's an artistic style.
More cartoony or stylized than say Ashes of Creation.
Yep.
It's also been confirmed that the game will have the Holy Trinity, and
in League of Legends, Riot already has like a style to their games. So it's like to deviate away from that could upset like a large too many people that are already fans of their games. So there's really no benefit in like doing the hyper realism. They should just keep their current style that they kind of have going with across their games and their cartoon.
When asked about the Holy Trinity, Greg says it mostly works, and it sounds like he intends to build group content with that traditional tank, healer, and DPS setup.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to branch out from what works. The Holy Trinity has worked for so long. I think there should be changes to it, but at the same time, are you going to gamble your MMO on it? Kind of not really something you want to do. I think if they lean towards Final Fantasy's way, where even if you're a tank, you're still doing pretty decent damage. If you're a healer, you're still doing pretty decent damage. Then I'll be fine with it. Because basically, you want it where people don't mind playing the tank class, don't mind playing the healer class. Because let's be fair, most people want to play DPS. So, and that's what Warcraft really runs into a problem where it's like 15-minute queues because no tank or healer.
In mind. And don't worry, they've also got fishing confirmed to be in the game. Greg was hoping to have public dev updates start in 2022, but with 2022 coming to a close, it looks like those are going to have to start happening in 2023. Still, that would mean that those aren't far away at all now. Greg talked about a party size of 6 for dungeons in a tweet of March of 22. I think this would be great. I'm tired of long DPS queues because there's never nearly as many tanks as there are DPS. He also clarified that Riot is not trying to reinvent the MMO. They want to make something familiar while innovating a little.
Exactly. They're going to get what other MMOs have already went through the trial of fire for, just like WoW when it first released. It's going to grab things that have succeeded in other MMOs and just polish the hell out of it. Like, they're not dumb. If they do any kind of research on why WoW succeeded, that's going to be the main one.
A little bit where it makes sense. They plan to make race cosmetics so that you can focus on making.
They did it with League of Legends. They did it with Valorant. Like, both games took existing ideas of that type of gameplay and just polished the hell out of it.
Your character how you want it to look. Now, this doesn't mean that you're losing a choice. It means that that choice is going to take place somewhere that doesn't dictate how your
It's better to be the best at something than the first
character is going to look. As of right now, we have no idea when Riot's MMO will be released, but based on other games in the category, a 4 to 7 year window seems reasonable, which would make the game due for release around 2025 to 2028. Good thing there are so many other MMOs on this.
I would put the release window closer to 2025 than 2028, only because there's only so long you can keep a game hyped for, and I'm sure they know that as well. It was the same with Valorant. Like, they didn't wait a ton of time. Like, they released it fairly quickly after like announcing they were working on it compared to other similar titles. So it's, at least to me, I think it makes more sense that we're probably looking at 2025 to 2024 release. Could be wrong, but that's what my hope is.
Liz to hold this over because that's too damn far away. Next, we have the ZeniMax Online Studios MMORPG, or at least that's what we think they're making. This next one's pretty interesting. ZeniMax Online Studios, the developers of Elder Scrolls Online, is working on what appears to be multiple projects, and one of which seems to be an MMO. Concrete details are very light on this one, so forgive us as we delve into some
I think I heard about what he's going to talk about, but there's like literally nothing to go on.
speculation. All they've said so far is that they're working on a game that is grand in every sense of the word, and job listings have more or less filled in what little else we know. Ben Jones was hired in 2018 as a creative director of a still unannounced project at ZeniMax Online Studios. If we sum up Ben's career, we see shooters and we see a passion project about a game that takes place in space. ZeniMax also hired artists that are experienced in spaceship themed level design, so let's take a look at what else we think we know. ZeniMax Online makes online games, so we can assume at the very least they are working on a multiplayer title. We can take a leap and assume their hiring page hints at a new MMO, as it says, "We've learned a lot from bringing the world of Elder Scrolls Online to life, and it's time for us to take those lessons learned and build a new AAA IP. The vision for our next game is grand in every sense of the word, and that's why we're developing a new engine to support the needs of the project and the studio. Because we're in early pre-production, this is the perfect time to join us and make your mark on an incredible new project." They're describing a game that is massive and will utilize what they learned from ESO to create a new IP. So it's massive, not unlike ESO, but it's also definitely not ESO because it's a new IP. And they are building the engine in-house, meaning it wouldn't be one of the many UE5 MMOs in the works. The interesting thing about this is we also saw ZeniMax Online Studios post job listings requesting Unreal Engine experience. So because we know ZOS is both building its own engine for something huge and potentially building something else on Unreal Engine, I wonder what the possible UE project is. What we know is ZeniMax Online Studios, the maker of Elder Scrolls Online, has been working on a new unannounced project since at least 2018, and it was confirmed in 2019 by Matt Furr. They recently reiterated that they've got over 200 people working on the game spread all over the world, with a team of 50 working directly under the game director Ben Jones.
So, I mean, it's like I said, there's like nothing right now. Like, they don't even have a trailer. They don't have. Yeah, this, we're looking at like maybe 8+ years. 6, I would say at the earliest 6 years.
Described it as grand and massive and benefiting from their experience making ESO. They have hired people with experience with space themed things, and rumor mills are suggesting something space related. One of their projects appears to be an MMO on an in-house engine, while the other appears to be something being built on Unreal Engine. Both are likely to be online games. The grand in every sense of the word project is 4.5 years into development. ESO took 7 years to release, but only took 5 years to officially announce. That means 2023 is looking like the perfect year for ZOS to announce what the new project is. Look at all of that. I mean, what a lineup. But that's not all. Then there's the titan of the genre lurking silently in the foreground. Blizzard still has what is arguably the biggest MMORPG in the world. They haven't announced it yet, but if you think they aren't working on their own successor to WoW, you're crazy. They've already tried once and scrapped.
I don't know about it, a successor to WoW, but I don't think it would hurt them to delve into another MMO. I don't know if it's like a successor though. I don't know if that's the right wording I would use, because it's like I don't see them closing WoW for the new one.
Wrap the project, turning the remains into what we now know as Overwatch. No doubt they've started anew. Blizzard has millions
I still think they can release an MMO based on Overwatch.
of MMORPG fans waiting for that next big MMO, and I'm sure they have every intention of being the one to deliver it. So if we toss them into the hat, that means we've got 8 MMORPGs currently in development by AAA studios. I highly doubt Blizzard intends to just watch as the likes of Riot and others come to take another piece of its already shrinking pie. But what will Blizzard's next MMO look like? World of Warcraft 2? World of StarCraft? World of Diablo? What do you think? Which MMOs are you excited about?
Cinematic.
Which ones are you not excited about? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more MMO content. Massive shout out to my YouTube members for supporting the channel so that I can bring you the best quality content possible. If you want to become a YouTube member for channel badges, access to a private Discord channel, and behind the scenes footage, click the join button down below. If you're not sure what to do next, consider watching one of the MMORPG videos popping up on screen right now. See you in the next.
Yeah, that was. Wait, what the heck? MapleStory was playing in 2023? I mean, if you're into that kind of MapleStory, like I played it for not too long ago, but honestly, it really gets you that grind. Once Dragonfly came out, I was just like, why am I still playing MapleStory? What the heck? It's a good video. I don't think I really agree with this never looked better, because there was a time when this was actually the norm, where there was like freaking dozen MMOs all being like announced or worked on. So it's not a dying genre. I don't think it was ever dying. I think it was more like developers were hesitant on investing into it just because you know, so many failures prior to it. You see a bunch of people failing at it. Is there a reason you're going to invest the time and money, especially with an MMO that requires enormous amounts of both? So, I mean, some of these are definitely I'm looking forward to. Soulframe, Arcades 2, and what was it? Throne and Liberty? Ashes Creations? Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to most of them, not going to lie. But I think the ones that are going to be coming out sooner than later is going to be like Throne and Liberty and Ashes of Creations. I think those are like the only ones that are like really close to releasing. I don't know about Arcades 2. I think that's still a ways. But yeah, really good video.